yale mashirika yasiyo ya kiserikali ambayo yamekuwa yakipiga kelele kuhusiana na wale watoto wa kike ambao wameuliwa kiholela holela tu kwa sababu ni wanawake. Kauli yangu mbiu ni kwa vijana na wazee, Bwana Spika, kuambia ya kwamba sisi wanawake kweli tuna mapungufu yetu kama wanadamu, lakini mtoto wa kike hapigwi hata kuuawa. Ukitaka kupiga mtoto wa kike, nunua kanga umpige na upande wa kanga. Inawezekana kweli kuna makosa ya hapa na pale. Wa seneti wa kiume muweze kusimama na sisi, kwa sababu ukifuga nyoka leo ataua mtoto wa kike, kesho atakuja pia ataua mtoto wako wa kiume. Kwa hayo mengi, Bwana Spika, asante na niwatakie heri na fanaka za mwaka huu wa 2024, na niwashukuru pia wale vigogo walionitangulia kwa kuweza kunishika mkono hadi kupendekeza miswada mitatu ambao mmoja wao uko katika nafasi ya pili ya second reading. Niwaombe viongozi wenzangu, mswada wa kumsimamia mtoto wa kike arudi shule ni mswada ambao utaondosha nchi yetu katika umaskini, kwa sababu itampa fursa yule mtoto ambaye ametelekezwa katika masomo yake kupata fursa ya pili, kuondosha uchochole katika jamii yake. Kwa hivyo nawaomba tutakaporudi muweze kuupitisha mswada wa Child and Protection of Parents, Child Parents Bill. Asanteni sana, Mwenyezi Mungu awabariki.
Senator Oburu.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to wish you a very, very happy New Year, Mr. Speaker, and your family, and a very, very prosperous New Year. I would also like to do the same to my fellow members of the Senate. I wish them a very, very prosperous New Year. Mr. Speaker, as we start the session, and we are today approving the list of the House Business Committee, Mr. Speaker, I just want us to reflect a little on some of the things which transpired and which I personally would not like to see again. Mr. Speaker, in the last Parliament, we passed quite a number of bills. Some of them were signed into law. You said some of them are stuck in the National Assembly. And Mr. Speaker, there were also so many motions passed, and there were many questions answered. And Mr. Speaker, I really appreciate the amount of work which was done by this Senate. I was a member of the East African Legislative Assembly, Mr. Speaker, and we did not do as much work as we do in the Senate here. There we had a different type of system, and we did work which was completely different, but it was not as much as what I have experienced here in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, there's one issue which I would not like to see repeated, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Halwale was speaking about the governors trying to teach us what to do, or even to tell us, ask us to support them in some issues. And Mr. Speaker, it is our responsibility to support the county governments. It is our responsibility to protect them. And Mr. Speaker, that includes propelling their issues. And Mr. Speaker, when it comes to allocation of revenue, I would have thought that members of the Senate would be the first to support proposals, particularly from the Revenue Allocation Commission, and also based on the rationality which was given to us here, Mr. Speaker, but we opposed it, and I don't want the debate to open again, but I hope that we shall not again continue with the same trend of not supporting the devolved units like the county governments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also saw something which happened last time, which I would not like to see repeated again. Mr. Speaker, there was a situation where a chairman of a committee, and I don't want to say which committee, Mr. Speaker, came here in the morning, presented to us a detailed report of a committee which they had worked on for more than 3 months. Mr. Speaker, we stood up and contributed and supported the chairman. And then in the afternoon, Mr. Speaker, the same chairman comes up and withdraws the same report, which was not his report, it was a report of a committee. Mr. Speaker, perhaps we shall improve and we shall not see such a situation again. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I support the proposed committee which has been proposed here, and I wish everybody a very, very successful deliberation in this new session. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kinyua.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii. Kwanza mwanzo nataka kuungana na wenzangu kutakia kutuma risala zangu za rambirambi kwa familia ya mwanariadha Kelvin ambaye aliaga dunia. Bwana Spika, mswada huu wa kamati ya shughuli katika bunge naunga mkono kwa sababu maseneta walioko katika kamati hii ni maseneta ambao kwa wakati ule mwingine walikuwa bado ni wao. Kwa hivyo ni watu ambao wako na uzoefu, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, nimemsikiza seneta wa Seneta Mungatana, Bwana Spika, akisema kwamba ni vizuri tuwe na kamati ambayo itakuwa ikitekeleza majukumu ambayo ama mapendekezo ambayo yameletwa na kamati zingine, Bwana Spika. Na hilo ninaona ni jambo zuri kabisa, Bwana Spika, kwa sababu mapendekezo yanayoletwa na kamati, na sio kamati tu, Bwana Spika, hata na bunge hili yanabaki kuwa tu ni mapendekezo, Bwana Spika, ambayo hayashughulikiwi, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo, Bwana Spika, mimi nataka kukubaliana na yeye, na pengine wakati huu kwa sababu tayari tumeanza na mwanzo mzuri, pengine itakuwa ni jambo zuri likishughulikiwa, Bwana Spika, na Seneti itaonekana sio tu mapendekezo inafanya, lakini vile vile tunayatekeleza yale mapendekezo. Bwana Spika, vile vile nachukua fursa hii kuwatakia mwaka mpya wenye mafanikio maseneta wote, na vile vile niwatakie watu wa Laikipia mwaka mpya wenye mafanikio, na vile vile niungane na maseneta kukutakia mwaka mpya hata wewe ulio na mafanikio, na nashukuru.
Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to also wish my colleagues Happy New Year. It's good to see all of you, including you, Mr. Speaker. And it's quite telling that this is one of a few committees where there's very little contestation. I don't see as much interest from members to be part of this committee as others. And I was just asking my colleagues who have served with me on that committee in the previous session, Mr. Speaker, it could be because this is one of those committees in this House that does not have the usual trappings and perks of other committees. There are no trips for the Senate Business Committee. In fact, Mr. Speaker, there are no perks that I am aware of. And this is one of those committees that cannot be adjourned for lack of quorum. So if you are a member of this committee, you must show up for meetings of this committee. And I suspect that is why the interest is not as high as the impending committee on impeachment of the governor of Kisii County that I've had here. Mr. Speaker, it has been the privilege of my life, my short life in this House, to serve on the SBC. I know just what awaits us in terms of scheduling business for this House. We have struggled with the many requests we got from members when it came to instances, for instance, on question time to cabinet secretaries. And I know now that the minority side also fully participates on this issue of questioning cabinet secretaries before this House. There's going to be an overwhelming number of requests for questions to put to cabinet secretaries. I can only hope that this House, through its leadership, can communicate to the CSS that we would expect full, cooperation from these cabinet secretaries for us to be able to execute the business of the House. Mr. Speaker, I may be the only one, but every time you flip a calendar, the expectation is that you will turn a new leaf in your life also. My expectation during this session was to see the best side of my colleagues here. But some of the comments that have already gone ahead have dampened my spirit and my expectation that some of my colleagues returned the very same people we said goodbye to in December. In the sort of debate that we're going to have here, Mr. Speaker, I was hoping to see a change, that we are new people, that we would give opportunity to new ideas and new thoughts, that we will listen to each other better, that we will not use this opportunity to rile up each other. If, for instance, there is a critical matter, such as a matter that was involving both sides of a political divide as a bipartisan report, some of the comments that I have heard from my colleagues leave me very wary of what we can expect in this session. And I know the majority leader must have been as offended as I have been by some of the comments directed at a committee that he served very ably and was able to midwife a child under very difficult political circumstances. Mr. Speaker, also last year we had cautioned that as a House we should not be preempting our own business, so that people should not be anticipating debate and making comments that lend themselves to some of the attacks we have received as a House, that matters come here when there is already a predetermined outcome. It has broken my heart, Mr. Speaker, for people to speak about business that might come before this House in a manner that suggests that decisions have already been reached. Even before we are seized of those matters, it is quite heartbreaking that indeed some people turn the calendars in their houses, but they never turn a new leaf in their own lives and in their own conduct as elected leaders. Mr. Speaker, I want to reiterate my commitment as a member of this, proposed member of this committee, that in fact, if approved by this House, I will dedicate my time as required to be able to conduct the business of the SBC, and some of the things that, because members, the proposed members have not gotten to speak, ordinarily we shouldn't speak, is that, Mr. Speaker, we make other sacrifices to be members of the Senate Business Committee. You have seen in other instances, members argue, oh, so-and-so is on 4 committees, so has too many committees, and they start with the SBC as if it is a regular committee. So then you hear people saying, no, Sifuna must now leave the Energy Committee, he must now concentrate fully on the SBC, with all its, lack of the perks that I have described here. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that my colleagues who have served on that committee in the previous session have given their best in the service of this House, and I am sure that their commitment is unwavering for us to be able to deliver the mandate of this House. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, yesterday I was at a burial, and the preacher who gave the preaching there said something profound to me, that life at its best is very, very short. Mr. Speaker, I could not believe when I heard the news about Kelvin Kiptum, that just when his career was taking off, just when he was becoming a global brand, just when everything looked up for him, we lost that young man in the most tragic of circumstances. I want to also take this opportunity on my own behalf of my family, on behalf of the ODM party, for which I am the SG, to condole with the family of Kelvin Kiptum, and to just say that we pray that God rests his soul in eternal peace. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mundigi.
Asante Bwana Spika, yangu naunga mkono kwa wale watu wamechaguliwa ndio waweze kutuongoza, na pia nawashukuru kwa ile kazi walifanya mwaka jana. Kwa hivyo tunajua hata mwaka huu kama walifanya percentage kidogo, sasa wataongezea na sisi tutakuwa tukifanya kazi pamoja. Ya pili, naunga mkono spika wetu na pia maseneta wote na wafanyikazi na kiraka na wafanyikazi wako kwa ile kazi mlifanya mwaka jana, na pia tuko na hakika hata mwaka huu tutafanya kazi pamoja ndio tuweze kupandilisha nchi yetu ya Kenya. Mambo ya kazi, tunajua senators, sisi mazungumzo yetu huwa tunazungumza juu ya devolution, na tunajua pesa zile tulipatia magavana mwaka jana ni kama wakati tumeenda masinani ni kama kulikuwa na shida nyingi sana. Ningeomba tu tuweze kuangalia mwaka huu, tuweze kuona vile kaunti nyingi zitaweza kuongezwa hizo pesa juu ya mambo ya elimu, mambo ya afya na mambo ya agriculture na department zingine. Ya pili ni mambo ambaye tunasikia deputy ametimuliwa, na pia tunajua ni kama mwaka jana vile tulikuwa tumesikia deputy wa Kisumu alikuwa ametimuliwa. Ningeomba wale watu wataenda kuangalia maneno waweze kuangalia na njia ile inafaa, kwa sababu tunajua governor ndiye anakuanga na mambo ya pesa, na sasa tunasikia deputy ndiye anatimuliwa. Kwa hiyo ningeomba wale wataangalia maneno waangalie na njia ile inafaa. Ya mwisho naongea mambo kuhusu pombe na dawa za kulevya. Watu wengi wamejua katika Kenya, vijana wetu wamepotea, kazi yao ni kukunywa pombe na dawa za kulevya na vitu zingine. Unakuta inakuwa nchi yetu inaendelea kusoroteka juu ya vijana. Nikikumbusha Senate, nakumbusha nyinyi, wiki jana huko Kirinyaga vijana wetu na kina mama walikufa juu ya hiyo pombe. Kwa hiyo mwaka huu ningeomba pia Senate ikienda kupitisha pesa, tuweze kuona kama kuna pesa itatengwa, kila county iweze kuwa na pesa ya kuweza kufunza hao watu na pia kuwaonyesha njia ile inafaa. Asante kwa vile naunga mkono Bwana Speaker. Mimi Senator wa Embu County ambaye ni Deputy Party Leader wa Democratic Party. Asante.
Now, honorable senators, kindly avoid commenting on the matter touching on the impeachment of the deputy governor, because doing so is anticipating debate. Senator Eddie Okech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Happy New Year to you and all the members of the House. Mine is actually a very short comment. I want my brother and also my leader, Senator Sifuna, not to worry about a few voices that might not have appreciated the work that this committee has done in the first session. Indeed, you know, Martin Luther King did say that if you are a street sweeper, just sweep the street so well that even if there's nobody who can be able to acknowledge on earth, the angels in heaven will see that the work that you've done has been very nice and will appreciate you. I want to say categorically that this particular committee and the individuals who have been in this committee in the first session, Mr. Speaker, have done amazing job. I mean, my experience in the House in that first session, that I do actually believe that has been by large because of this committee. And the work that this committee did in the first session, and the individuals, of course, that are still there, including Sifuna, was amazing. I think that this year, you will do better. It doesn't mean that last year was bad or last session was bad. And I just wanted to urge that primarily the pride of our labor in this House is that we want to make laws. I think that's the biggest legacy, that if you leave this House sometimes, or if you are much older and bent double, you can be able to remember that indeed I did pass laws. I know that last year the committee did try to adjust on the time for statements so that we could give more room to the passing of bills. But indeed this year, I hope that I want to wish you the courage to even find some more adventurous ways to be able to ensure that we can be able to pass, to deliberate on more bills. I think that there is, from what you talked about, Mr. Speaker, it seems like there's a bulk of bills that have not been addressed in this House. That will be the only gap that I'm seeing, but I support this committee. It has got very serious, capable leaders who have been within this House, starting from Senator Roba, you know, who has been the chair of Finance and Budget, as well as my dear sister, Senator Mutinda, who is also the vice chair there. I've had a very amazing time working with them in those committees, and they've done a great job. You know, we've always seen the grit and the wisdom of the Wakili Hillary when he takes, you know, that chair when you're not there, Mr. Speaker, doing amazing job. I mean, I can talk about all these different individuals, and they're just amazing individuals. So we wish you well this year. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, let me also take my humble time to actually pass my deepest condolences and share in this pain of the loss of one Kelvin Kiptum. You know, Mr. Speaker, I can't you know, start talking about how sad I feel about this loss, because some of us young people who have been motivated by seeing how much commitment and how much hard work goes to our athletes in this country. I remember when Kipchoge, Eliud, was attempting to do a sub-2, Mr. Speaker, that entire day we as young people camped at KICC to be able to witness this great man making history. And this year, one of my biggest delights for this year, and one of the things I wanted to see was somebody doing it actually in official time. And we really were hoping that Kelvin will bring this home to the country. And therefore, it's a very, very painful experience that I cannot explain, not only in the DNA of the nation, but even to the family. But in the same way, Mr. Speaker, I don't want us to forget to take this opportunity also to say sorry to the family of his coach, Mr. Akizimana, who was a Rwandese, by citizenship, but actually did dedicate his time, rising just recently to the elite coaching levels in the athletic world. I think that this house cannot forget him, because indeed he was the biggest partner to Kelvin and also gave so much to this country. And I want to take this opportunity as a senator in Kenya to also pass our deepest condolences and share in the pain of his family in Rwanda, as well as the Rwandese Athletic Federation, for that big loss that they also experience. And I hope that as a country, we will stand with both of them together, because it is on their shoulders that this country prides in the kind of fame that they have given us. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to this session, and I hope that will give the country the best with the little time that we might have in this house this year. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, first and foremost, I think I want to thank God for giving us the opportunity to come back again here. I can see there are a lot of bright faces here. We are all safe and sound. To Honorable Speaker, this House has the responsibility to oversee devolution. If there's no devolution, I think Kelvin will not be there. And as it is today, and as chairman of the devolution committee, devolution now is actually under threat from two issues, but mainly two issues. One is that there's a runaway corruption that is actually invested within the counties, and for sure, if we just keep our eyes closed, then I think devolution will not be able to work as it is, and it will not be able to achieve what we want to achieve. And therefore, that now the Senate has received the oversight funds, at least something has been received, first tranche. I want to ask my colleagues that this time we need to enhance the oversight. I think, Honorable Speaker, I will suggest that we form what we call some kind of regional approach, where the senators from certain regions can collaborate with the little money they have and work as a team. I think that's the time we can be able to deliver a better result than running around individually. Otherwise, I think we will not be able to save devolution. Two, devolution is actually under threat because of the funds are not being released on time. As we talk now, the last time the governors received their money, the counties, I think it was the one of October or September. There's a lot of backlog in payment. The staff are paid from banks. And as you are aware now, the interest rate for banks are now increased. And therefore, the counties are facing a lot of challenges. Despite the corruption going on, well, of course, the delay is actually causing unnecessarily due sufferings, especially for the county to deliver. Two, I think the finance committee chair is here. The additional fund has not up to now been released. The grants have not been released. I think this House has took this thing serious, and we need to release that fund so that these counties can work and deliver. Honorable Speaker, we are now in the third session, the third year almost. What's remaining around 3 years, I mean, so for us to deliver. So we need, I think, to pull up our socks, to work extra mile, so that we can be able to deliver and see the strength, devolution work is strengthened. That because there are so many other bendy bills, we also need to follow up on those bendy bills in every county, and to see that those people who give services to and goods and services to the counties receive their money, because many businessmen are going out of business because their money has not been paid in time. They are missing for the last 10 years. Some of them have gone out of business, and therefore, I want us actually to take that one serious also, and see that Kenyans are paying their money, because they have worked hard for their money. They are businessmen, and the businessmen actually have been accused. One other thing is, Honorable Speaker, I think in the last 2 sessions, there are so many bending and banned businesses in this House. Especially bills, almost 40 bills have not been passed. Out of maybe 52 or 50, I don't know how many they are. Therefore, and I think that the problem is that there are too many statements. Too many statements, Honorable Speaker. I also suggest the House Business Committee should prioritize the bills this time around. Honorable Speaker, can you present us, please? I think the Majority Leader is interrupting my
Majority Leader, kindly consult in Lawton. Allow the Senator Abbas to conclude his.
I'll finish. So, Honorable Speaker, what I'm saying is, I think much of our time is being consumed by statements. You have seen 20 statements being made, and most of them are interrelated. So I think I request the House Business to take the matter serious and to limit the segments. This time around, we must be able to complete our bills. With those few remarks, I want to support the bill. Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Kiptum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion. And Mr. Speaker, Standing Order 194 is really very clear as to the responsibility of the House Business Committee. And Mr. Speaker, it is therefore true that this committee is critical in performance of the functions of this House. And I would like to really thank this membership, because in this second session, Mr. Speaker, they have been able to do a very commendable job. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, even as you proceed now in this session, they will continue to do exactly what you've done even in the previous session. Mr. Speaker, I have 2 issues I would want to urge the committee to consider. There has been a debate, Mr. Speaker, whether we should have the Committee on Implementation. Mr. Speaker, in the other House, you remember when you served with you in the National Assembly, we have a Committee on Implementation to ensure resolutions of the House are actually implemented by the government. In this Senate, Mr. Speaker, there has been a discussion whether we should have one. Mr. Speaker, I strongly recommend to the House Business Committee to consider having these our standing orders amended so that we have a Committee on Implementation. Mr. Speaker, Senate should not act in vain. We should be able to ensure that whatever we pass here in terms of resolution are actually acted upon by the relevant state agencies and so on. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is the regional economic blocks, which in my view, Mr. Speaker, plays a critical role in ensuring that counties cooperate together and be able to share in their growth economically. It enhances opportunities for employment. And Mr. Speaker, what is lacking from where I sit is there is no legal framework to ensure that those economic blocks work very well. I think it is important for this House, Mr. Speaker, in this session, and this goes to the chairman, I think he has left, on devolution, so that at least to ensure that these economic blocks, Mr. Speaker, are able to work and therefore establish legal framework that is able to give them the legal capacity to proceed. Finally, Mr. Speaker, this House should be able also to look at some of the critical issues affecting the counties. Mr. Speaker, insecurity in this country is affecting 7 counties, Mr. Speaker. Cattle rustling, barrentry, expansion, and so on, Mr. Speaker. So that today, Mr. Speaker, there are 7 counties in this country: Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, Turkana, West Pokot, Isiolo, Marsabit, and so on, Mr. Speaker, where there is no peace enjoyed by the population. So this House, Mr. Speaker, I will be moving a motion, and I know the House Business Committee will approve, I hope so that, Mr. Speaker, we discuss this issue extensively as a House, so that we have this, our people live in peace, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion, and I want to wish this team well as they begin this session. Mr. Speaker, allow me to finally also join my colleagues in expressing my condolences to the family of Kelvin, Kiptum, for the unfortunate demise of that very young man, and we say sorry to his family and this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, at the onset, I arise to support the motion for nomination of the members to serve in the Senate Business Committee, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, these are continuing members. They served in the first session, second session, and now the third session. Basically, Senate will not need to spend resources on capacity building, on training, Honorable Speaker, because they already have experience, they have been trained. Honorable Speaker, finally, the main reason why I wanted to speak is on behalf of the great people of Elgeyo Marakwet County, my family, I wish to convey my condolences to the family of Kelvin Kiptum. Kiptum was from Elgeyo Marakwet County, Kipsamoa village, Chipkoria location. This was a very young, promising man who ran last year Chicago Marathon in 2 hours and 35 seconds. Basically, we thought this year he was going to run under 2 hours, Honorable Speaker, but it's unfortunate that he passed on Sunday night through a road accident, Honorable Speaker. And as the Senator, I wish to convey our condolences both to his family, relatives, the great people of Elgeyo Marakwet County, and Kenyans at large, and also the family of his coach in Rwanda and both in Kenya, Honorable Speaker. It's unfortunate that this is a young man who was going to go very far. He ran his first race 2018 on a borrowed shoes, Honorable Speaker, and he was going to be a great man, but because it has happened, we don't have a choice. Ours is to accept that it was God's will at this particular time. The family is very young, and I urge the government of Kenya Kwanza to take to give him a good state burial, Honorable Speaker. I thank also the CS for Sports and Youth, because he was there yesterday to condole with us, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I believe tomorrow we'll have a motion on this particular issue. I don't want to take much time, because I believe the Senate Business Committee wants to go and meet and set up business for us from tomorrow onwards. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Nyamu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am very excited to be in this third session of this Senate proceedings, And Mr. Speaker, the recess that we have just had has been one of the most fulfilling for me because I got to interact with the real issues that my people in Nairobi are facing. I had the opportunity to have Christmas with children in Mathare and widows of Korokosho and young mothers, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of the year, my foundation was privileged to offer full secondary school education scholarship to the needy. And Mr. Speaker, what that presented for me is the glaring inequality that presents itself in the lack of free secondary education, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is very heartbreaking that even today, to date as we speak, we have students, bright students who did exemplarily well in school but have not yet reported to school because they are not able to afford, or their parents are not able to afford the demands that come with secondary school education, and that includes the uniform, the tuition fees, and all that, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, even if we chose, all of us here today, to sponsor 20, 50 students, it will still not be enough. It will still not be sufficient. And so, Mr. Speaker, as a country, as a leadership, we have failed the students of this country, and I am looking forward to this Senate, this session, coming up with lasting solutions through bills, Mr. Speaker, through influence of policy, so that we can give all children an opportunity to have an education, because, Mr. Speaker, all of us, if not most of us here, are products of education. And so the least we can do, Mr. Speaker, we can shelve everything else, but let us have all the children of Kenya educated, no matter the background and no matter where they come from. And Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to join the entire country in mourning the very painful death of Master Kelvin Kiptum, who lost his life in a tragic accident. And as a people of Kenya, we have lost part of our story. We have lost part of our history because his potential we didn't get to experience what he was as a gift to us. And so to the family and to the entire country, I offer my deepest condolences and those of my family. And as for the members of the SBC, I have full confidence in them. They are all very skilled senators. They are all very able. We support you, and we support the work that you have done for us so far, and I support another mandate for you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader, proceed to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to thank my colleagues who have taken time to share their thoughts on this motion to set up the Senate Business Committee for the third session of this Senate, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleagues for the things that they've raised during debate. Many issues, Mr. Speaker, those that are concerned, many broadly support the team and appreciate the work that our SBC has done. Of course, I have listened to the concerns of members of the Jubilee Party. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, they are not here. I'm sure there are better avenues they can use, Mr. Speaker, and the standing orders provide for ways which they can address the challenge and the situation they presently find themselves in, Mr. Speaker. By and large, Mr. Speaker, many of our colleagues appreciate the important role of SBC, especially in scheduling business and ensuring that we have business to transact as a house, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join also my colleagues in passing tribute to the world record holder, the departed friend, Kelvin Kiptum, together with his coach, who unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, met their demise 2 nights ago. As a country, we are in mourning, Mr. Speaker. This young man had a life full of promise. There was a great career ahead of him. Many of us who are fans of athletics were looking forward actually to the duel in Paris later on this year during the Olympics between him and Eliud Kipchoge, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate that as fate would have it, Kelvin will not be there. Of course, there are lessons that we learn, but of course, Mr. Speaker, we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we can do? So many of our athletes have departed in this particular way. Many of them world beaters, some of them were lucky to survive. You'd remember, I think, Rudisha, 2 or 3, almost at the prime of his career also, had a similar incident, and in fact, ended his career with an injury from which he never recovered from, Mr. Speaker. And so many of these young athletes. And it points out to a lack, Mr. Speaker, perhaps of maybe mentorship or something that you could do to these young people that do so much for us as a country, yet we pay so little to. And many times we just remember them when they have passed on, like we have seen. You remember of Samuel Wanjiro, Mr. Speaker, met his death in almost similar circumstances through an accident, Mr. Speaker, that couldn't be explained. It's unfortunate. Though we are blessed with abundant talent as a country, Mr. Speaker, there is a lesson therein for us, that there is a lot more that we need to do other than just celebrate and tweet and take pictures with our stars when they return from victory. We need to invest in them as well. There are many things that Kenyans are saying, and we must learn to listen. The Minister for Sports, I saw he visited the home of Kiptum yesterday, but then we look forward to hearing what is it that we as a country have learned over time, because this is not the first athlete at the peak of their career that we have lost. You remember many of them have found themselves even in love triangles and many such kind of things, Mr. Speaker, and have ended their life at very young age, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, want to say fare thee well, Kelvin. We know that we would have wished to have you longer. I was certain, as a fan of athletics, Mr. Speaker, that this is a gentleman who was going actually to do the sub-2 in a competitive marathon. And I thought that was going to happen in this year's Olympic, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate, but such is the fate of man, Mr. Speaker. Many are our plans, but unfortunately not all of them come to pass. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I wish to urge my colleagues that we take our work as a Senate seriously. Mr. Speaker, last week I had the opportunity to address a gathering of the directorate, of the staff of the directorate of the Speaker's office. And there were certain very grim statistics that were read out to us. And I wish I had mentioned this when the House was a bit more full when we began this session, that this is the first time that Senate has been adjourned close to 10 times for lack of quorum in the last 2 sessions. I hope we don't have a repeat of that, Mr. Speaker, because there is nobody who came to this House unopposed. All of us, Mr. Speaker, there was somebody we were competing with, somebody who felt that they deserve a better chance to represent the people that we represent here than ourselves. Ordinary citizens woke up early, queued, voted, and said that I put my trust in Eddie to speak for me, on my behalf in the Senate of the Republic. It cannot be then, Mr. Speaker, that same Eddie cannot find just 3 hours on a single afternoon, 3 times a week, to come and speak on behalf of those people. I don't understand. I struggle, Mr. Speaker, to understand where people disappear to, such that, yes, of course, Eddie is an example. I must tell the people of Migori that I have seen many Migori senators, so to speak, and you are as fine as they come, Senator Eddie. I celebrate you because of your diligence and industry in this House. Every afternoon, you are among the very last people to leave this House. And I'd wish that many of our colleagues could take you from that and appreciate that this is a rare opportunity and a privilege, that thousands others wish to sit in this House and speak on behalf of residents. Yet, on many afternoons, we find ourselves less than 10 or 15 people in the House. It's my sincere hope that we will take our job a bit more seriously, Mr. Speaker. I hope we shall hold governors to account. Citizens are crying. Many of our counties are in very embarrassing situations, Mr. Speaker. And I look forward, Mr. Speaker, we have had this discussion about the current system of accountability that we have, where Auditor General sends a report to a particular committee, a report comes which we never discuss individually, and sometimes they're just lumped together, Mr. Speaker, and that becomes business as usual. We need to do better. Each of us must be able to look each other in the eye and speak to one another as colleague senators and say, I have a problem in my county.
this is what the governor is doing. As my colleague senators, help me on behalf of my people. You know, in terms of health, in terms of ECDs, leakage of revenue. I want to propose, in fact, to you colleagues, that just in the same way that the national government is going cashless in its revenue collection, we need to push these governors to install systems also that are cashless. Many of the revenue leakage processes in our county, money is just being collected in sacks and it is never banked, Mr. Speaker. Yet we preside over the same, Mr. Speaker. If there is a year that the Senate of this republic must hold governors to account if you want to keep devolution alive in this country, then it is 2024, my dear brothers and sisters. If we do not do it, then Kenyans will give up and say they are all children of the same mother. So they may call themselves senators or governors, but they are one and the same. I don't believe that that is what is expected of us, Mr. Speaker. It is my hope that as a House, we shall rise up to the occasion and ensure that Kenyans enjoy the fruits of devolution as they had hoped in 2010 when they voted for these constitutions. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, honorable senators, pursuant to Standing Order 84-1, it is my determination that this matter does not affect counties and therefore voting shall be by voice. I will therefore proceed to put the question. The pursuant to Standing Orders 190 and 199.3, the Senate approved the following senators nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee for the third session. In addition to the Speaker of the Senate, who pursuant to Standing Order 191 shall be the chairperson of the committee, the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip, and the Senate Minority Whip. And the following senators: Senator Roba Ali Ibrahim, EGH, MP, Senator Edwin Sifuna, MP, Senator Veronica Maina, MP, Senator Wakili Hilary Kiprotich Sigei, MP, Senator Maureen Tabitha Mutinda, MP, Senator Agnes Kavindu Muthama, MP, and lastly, Senator Munyehaji Faki, CBS, MP. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable senators, you may now rise. There being no other business on the order paper, the Senate stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 14th of February 2024 at 9:30 a.m. The members of the Senate Business Committee, we proceed immediately to Committee Room 4 for our meeting. Thank you.
That marks the success